Hi, my name is Lainey.
And my name is Karen.
And our environmental science class is here to talk about PFAS.
PFAS stands for polyfluoroalkyl substances. These are man-made chemicals that are used in many of our products such as food containers and wrappings, waterproof and greaseproof coatings, and many kinds of furniture.
There are thousands of PFAS chemical groups, and these chemicals can be very harmful to humans, animals, and the environment.
PFAS has fluoropolymer coatings that can be used in food packaging, such as grease-resistant and water-resistant packaging.
It is also used to make non-stick cookware that resists things like heat, oil, grease, and water. Another thing PFAS is used for is stain-resistant for carpets and furniture, water and stain-resistant clothing, and wrinkle-resistant fabrics, and firefighting foam.
PFAS is found in many other things, such as fast food containers, microwave popcorn bags, pizza boxes, and candy wrappers.
PFAS has been found in many places in Maine, and there are 245 identified sites, but the DEP is testing roughly 700 sites in 34 towns that are potentially contaminated. 28 different types of PFAS have been detected in Maine, and 30,000 cases of PFAS have been detected in soil and water.
PFAS has been detected at many farms because it was in the sludge and wastewater treatment plants and from composted septic tank sludge that got put on the farmland as fertilizer.
It's been found in drinking water, surface water, landfills, sludge, and septage, and a few other places, including an old paper mill land, because it was used as protective coatings on the paper.
DEP is testing soils in areas where they know that sludge was spread on the fields, and they test to see how much of the chemical is in the soil. This is called a step-out investigation. The state of Maine encouraged farmers and landowners to use sludge as not only an inexpensive kind of fertilizer, but also as a method for water treatment plants to cheaply dispose of waste products. Farmers were unaware that there were even PFAS in their soil when the testing began.
People are worried about farming where PFAS is. As of right now, the only safe crop to plant in the PFAS is flowers and anything you won't eat, because plants grow on the contaminated soils, absorb PFAS, and accumulate them in their tissues. Maine has not yet decided what to do about cleaning the PFAS out of the soil so that farms can continue to grow food crops.
Dairy farms have been affected by PFAS. Cows eat the grass, and the PFAS accumulates in their bodies and also gets passed along to their calves and to people through their milk. On dairy farms, the state of Maine set the safe level at 6,800 parts per trillion in the soil.
Maine DEP does not know how many farms have the PFAS chemical in the soil. Other animals also may be fed grass, hay, and crops and accumulate PFAS in their bodies.
An email was sent to hunters announcing, "Do not eat the deer you harvest" in Fairfield, Waterville, Oakland, Skowhegan, Smithfield, and Norridgewock. There is a plan to test deer, turkey, and other wildlife before the 2022 hunting season.
There are no Maine labs doing PFAS testing, so the samples were sent to Massachusetts, but there are hopes of testing at UMaine. The governor put $750,000 towards wildlife testing in Maine. Deer in Fairfield have been labeled as unsafe for consumption, with a recommendation not to eat the Fairfield deer more than 2 or 3 times a year.
2 fields away from the originally discovered deer, slightly lower levels of PFAS were found, and a recommendation was put out to not eat more than 1 meal per week for the deer. The PFAS in Fairfield originates from sludge spread on fields as fertilizer. Fish have become a huge issue with PFAS, contaminating ecosystems and food chains.
Without the ability to excrete PFAS, the fish and organisms are subjected to a buildup causing higher dangerous levels. This is known as bioaccumulation. You only need 1 to 2 parts per trillion of PFAS to start a bioaccumulation issue.
Bioaccumulation through small fish eating plants and building PFAS levels, followed by fish eating fish and building more, causing higher trophic levels to have dangerous levels.
Runoff and rainwater cause PFAS to contaminate our water, leading to our fish. Multiple areas have a recommendation not to eat the fish due to PFAS levels, including the Kennebunk River.
Some alternatives for single-use disposable items like paper plates and bowls can be made from PFAS-free materials such as bamboo and palm leaf. They can also be made from clay, and boxes can be made from biowax.
Alternatives to firefighting foam, which uses PFAS for heat resistance, were developed in Europe by two companies called Bioaccumulation and Solberg Scandinavian. Here are some basic human health effects. The CDC has discovered that 97% of Americans have PFAS in their blood. It gets into our blood from the food we eat and the water we drink. Babies who are born to mothers exposed to PFAS can be exposed during pregnancy and while breastfeeding. PFAS accumulates in all human tissues, but lung tissues accumulated the highest concentration. It's mainly found in blood, but small amounts can be found in urine, breast milk, and in umbilical cord blood. Research has found that blood PFAS levels can be 100 times higher than the drinking water PFAS levels, and this is because of bioaccumulation, which is the gradual accumulation of substances in organisms. PFAS linger in the human body, but they do dissipate slowly. So what does PFAS do to our bodies? PFAS has been known to cause increased cholesterol levels, decreased vaccine response in children, changes in liver enzymes, increased risk of high blood pressure or preeclampsia in pregnant women, small decreases in infant birth weights, and increased risk of kidney or testicular cancer. Animal studies have shown that it can also cause damage to the liver and immune system.
To know if you have PFAS in your blood, you have to get your blood tested with a biomonitoring program. Biomonitoring assesses people's exposure to chemicals like PFAS by measuring it in the blood. The limit for exposure in drinking water is 20 parts per trillion, 200 parts per trillion in milk, and 3.4 parts per trillion in beef. While there are currently no medical procedures that can clear PFAS out of the body, you can remove possible sources of exposure from your environment to reduce your ongoing exposure. These things would include packaged food, personal grooming products, and non-stick cookware. It takes around 4 years for the levels to go down by half, and this is even if no more is taken into the body. There is good news through all of this scary stuff. Since 1999, blood PFAS levels have declined by more than 60%.
The way reverse osmosis works is it forces water through a semi-permeable membrane, leaving the PFAS behind. The average price of a reverse osmosis filtration system is $2,000. The way a charcoal filter works is it absorbs the PFAS and leaves the water behind. The average price of a charcoal filtration system is $2,000.
Ion exchange treatment is where one or more undesirable ionic contaminants are removed from water by a chemical reaction that replaces the contaminant with a less toxic chemical. The average price of an ionic exchange treatment system is $2,500. They all can be installed at home. EPA says 70 parts per trillion is considered safe for drinking water, but Maine has it as 20 parts per trillion.
Incineration is the main thing we use to get rid of PFAS in our soil and sludge. Incineration is the destruction of something, especially waste material, by burning.
Incineration is where the sludge is heated to high temperatures for a long time to break the carbon-halogen bond, after which the halogen can be scrubbed from the flue gas. Incineration has been used as a method of destroying related organic chemicals.
One solution to remove PFAS out of the soil is to use thermal heating. This requires the soil to be removed from the fields and heated in a large furnace to break down the PFAS into safer substances.
These substances would then be emitted into the air and soil would be returned to the field.
What is the federal government doing about PFAS? They restarted the process to designate PFOA and PFOS as hazardous substances and increase our understanding of the number and location of PFOA and PFOS releases. Scientific review of draft documents, including recent scientific data and new analyses that indicate negative health effects, may occur at much lower levels of exposure than previously understood.
The federal government is evaluating the existing data and strengthening the ability to clean up PFAS contamination across the country. Human health toxicity assessments by expert scientists, rigorous external peer review, and public comment is another thing they are doing to help with PFAS.
They established a national primary drinking water standard for PFOA and PFOS, 70 parts per trillion. They are developing a national PFAS testing strategy and requiring manufacturers to provide information on PFAS.
They are requiring testing and monitoring for 29 PFAS chemicals in drinking water between 2023 and 2025. They proposed a rule to require all manufacturers of PFAS in any years since 2011 to give EPA a wide range of data, including how they are using certain PFAS. In the past 1 to 2 years, Maine passed several laws and started developing procedures and regulations to deal with PFAS contamination in the state. They amended its legal definition of a hazardous substance to include PFAS.
They will restrict the discharge, manufacture, sale, and distribution of firefighting or fire-suppressing foam to which PFAS have been intentionally added, except in certain limited exceptions. The legislation also requires that a person who discharges any such foam to report the discharge to the DEP within 24 hours after the discharge. Beginning on January 1st, 2023, manufacturers of products for sale in Maine that contain intentionally added PFAS must provide notice to DEP information about the product, including the amount and type of PFAS in the product. Effective January 1st, 2023, no carpet, rug, or fabric treatment with intentionally added PFAS may be sold in Maine.
As of January 1st, 2030, no product with intentionally added PFAS may be sold in Maine unless the DEP determines that the PFAS is currently unavoidable use. Maine approved a bill worth $100 million to help farmers that have been affected by PFAS. The governor included $9.5 million in the 2022-2023 budget towards addressing PFAS contamination in Maine. Several millions will go towards testing in Maine. More than $3 million will go towards farmers affected by PFAS.
Maine's Department of Environmental Protection is currently working on, or will, develop a program to evaluate soil and groundwater for PFAS substances where sludge or septage was land applied and to test landfill leachate, hire staff to test approximately 700 sites by the end of 2025,
develop sampling plans for background and discharge, and request that 25 landfill facilities in Maine complete testing by the end of 2022.
Establish a land application contaminant monitoring fund. The money will be used to test and monitor soil and groundwater for PFAS and other contaminants and for other related activities such as mitigating contamination through the installation of drinking water filtration systems or other remedial actions.
Investigations and response activities are to be funded through a handling fee assessed by the DEP on sludge or septage beginning January 1st, 2022. Beginning of January 15th, 2023, DEP must submit a report to the legislature regarding its use of the fund, including a summary of contamination investigated and identified.
The Maine legislature passed a law that requires manufacturers and distributors of registered pesticides to report whether the product has been stored, distributed, or packaged in fluorinated high-density polyethylene container and whether a PFAS substance is in the formulation of the registered pesticide. Contact your state and federal representatives and tell them about your concerns about the PFAS issue. Ask them to support funding laws and regulations to deal with PFAS, including testing sites for PFAS contamination, cleaning up contaminated sites and groundwater,
more funding for research into the health effects and treatments for PFAS contamination, and finally, the replacement of PFAS with more environmentally friendly products.
Thanks for watching!